We begin tonight with two of the least secure jobs in Parliament, the Leader and Deputy Leader of the Opposition after an election defeat. Such were National's numbers in the election that speculation about Bill English's position has been muted and theoretical in the 3.5 months since Winston Peters went with Labor. But suddenly this morning, pop. Media speculation, National MPs being asked about their leadership on the way into Parliament, and Bill English taking questions on the subject after what should have been an agenda-setting State of the Nation speech. The party is grappling with the best way to recover from its election loss, and much of the discussion is around the way the leadership team handled the failed coalition negotiations with New Zealand First. We begin with our Deputy Political Editor, Chris Bramwell.
National Party MPs have privately told RNZ there are no specific moves against Bill English as leader, but there are pockets of discontent about his deputy Paula Bennett. Some believe the leadership team did not do enough to establish a relationship with Winston Peters and New Zealand First during the last term, and question the strategy of the choice of negotiators who ended up at the table and ultimately lost out to Labor. On their way into Parliament today, MPs were playing down the talk. Former Cabinet Minister Anne Tolley was remaining firmly behind the current leadership team.
We're very happy with Bill English and Paula Bennett as our leader. It's just absolute scurrilous gossip.
These backbenchers were also supporting the status quo.
No, there's not going to be no leadership challenge.
Have you heard about the numbers being done though to roll?
No, someone's telling you a lot of fibs.
Oh, look, I can't comment on that. It's, we're right behind Bill and Paula at the moment, and it's going well.
I haven't even given that any thought. In my view, this is way speculative. Bill English had a fantastic result in the election. Sure, we're not the government, and I think all this is just idle speculation, and I haven't given it any thought.
In opposition, although a bit of leadership speculation certainly does turn out the journalists for lunch. I hope someone feeds them so they get in a good mood. I'm sure you all had a good summer.
Bill English gave his State of the Nation speech to a business audience in Wellington this afternoon. He attacked the way the government plans to reduce child poverty and plant trees, as well as launching a campaign to fight its employment law changes. But his speech was overshadowed by questions about National's leadership.
I have to say I enjoy more support in the caucus and the party membership and our supporters than ever.
Mr English says he's getting on with the job and dismissed the speculation as gossip.
I'd be surprised if there's any political caucus where there isn't sometimes some talk about who's next or who's third in line or who's fourth in line. I mean, these are ambitious people who want to change the way the world works and see politics as a way of doing that. So I wouldn't be at all surprised if there's some talk, but I'd have to say the conflation of that into some kind of threat to my leadership I think is ridiculous.
Standing alongside Mr English at the media conference today, Selwyn MP Amy Adams was asked if she had any leadership ambitions.
Bill English is a remarkable leader, and I've got absolutely zero interest in a change of leader or in the leadership team. I think what Bill has done for New Zealand and for the party is a truly remarkable record, and we're very lucky to have him, and there's no desire that I'm aware of that there's any change for that. And do you leave the National Party? Oh, look, who knows where the future goes, but what I'm saying is I want Bill English to continue to lead us for a long time yet.
National's Deputy Leader Paula Bennett also dismissed speculation about her position, saying she's had nothing but support from her colleagues. She says she's confident she has the full backing of the caucus.
Yeah, feeling great. It's a huge privilege to be in any sort of position where you are, in a deputy leadership position where you're helping to lead your party and that sort of thing. It's a job I love, and certainly I've had no indications whatsoever today of anything but full support.
Mrs Bennett was also full of praise for Mr English and wants him to lead the party into the 2020 election.
Yeah, absolutely. God, I hope so. He's just doing such a great job.
The party goes into a 2-day caucus meeting late next week in Tauranga, where it's a safe bet that the leadership speculation will continue to rumble on. Atu I te whare pari mata mō te hōtaka o te ahi nei, ko Chris Bramwell ahau.
Let's go now live to our political editor, Jane Patterson, who beams in from Parliament. Hi, Jane. Lovely to talk to you. What's going on here? Is Bill English on death row, or is his response to it this afternoon, which was that being the leader of the opposition is contingent upon performance, and he plans to perform an entirely reasonable one?
Look, those
comments were very carefully presented. He was asked whether he would commit to leading the party into the 2020 election. He said that wasn't a commitment he could make because his position is dependent on the support of MPs, and in the National Party, if you lose the support of the majority of the caucus, you are out. So in that way it was a fair enough response, but he basically said if he commits to the performance that will maintain the confidence of the MPs. But look, what's happening here, John, I think is inevitable after what happened at the end of last year, after that election result, is going to be talk about whether the leadership team is the right one to lead National into the next election. And look, it's early days, but MPs, I think, have probably had a bit of time to look back over the Christmas break over what happened. Some of the discontent that I've heard is about how the negotiations were handled last year, that the National Party leadership hadn't done enough to build that relationship with New Zealand First and Winston Peters through the term, and then the way the negotiations clearly turned out. Now, Bill English said he takes full responsibility for what happened there, and he said at the time he actually did consider standing down, but he got the support and vocal support from his caucus. So I think this is part of a longer term consideration about where the National Party goes, but really with some rankling still about the fact that they are sitting on the opposition benches and look over at Labour on the government benches, something they just actually didn't expect to happen.
And we go back to election night. National got, 44.4, Labour got 36.9, so 37%. And so the issue clearly was not the performance of a third-term government, which actually in terms of votes did really well. It was that the Māori Party fell over, National hadn't done enough to make them attractive to the electorate, and National couldn't negotiate with Winston First. And lots of the talk that I'm hearing is about the fact that Paula Bennett had an abysmal relationship with Winston Peters. Is that problematic? Is that the issue? And is Paula Bennett therefore in more trouble than Bill English?
Look, the talk is certainly more focused on Paula Bennett, and not just because of the negotiations or any relationship she may or may not have, but her performance as Deputy Leader in the eyes of some MPs. And look, I must stress, there are 56 MPs in this caucus, and I would describe it potentially better as pockets of discontent, but her name is coming up, and the fact with that is that as her deputy, Bill English and Paula Bennett are tight. They are a tight unit. So if there was any move against Paula Bennett, that would effectively be a move against Bill English as well, a vote of no confidence in the leadership. Now, I don't get any sense that that is imminent. And people I've talked to said that there would be a backlash if anyone was seen to move against Bill English in particular, whether that was by de facto through Paula Bennett or against him directly. So at the moment, there is no groundswell that I can sense in terms of a vote or a spill or anything approaching that. What we're more looking about is the ambitious senior MPs really starting to look at what a future leadership team might look like, and underneath that some niggles about last year, some niggles about what is going to be facing the National Party this year, directed at that leadership team. And again, I think that's reflected in Bill English's comments about his performance, a message to his caucus that he intends to step up and perform and keep their confidence. And that is he also talked to his caucus through the media today saying discipline is important. The National Party have been a disciplined caucus through government, and the worst thing for an opposition party in particular is when MPs publicly or privately start to talk down the leadership, because that can light a match under events that can spiral pretty quickly out of control in terms of leadership and changes and all sorts of different consequences.
Jane Patterson, our political editor, joining us live from Wellington on a busy day in Parliament. We'll be back there shortly.